about the book because I think it's important that that's what I do, right? Facebook and all the other socials are for chatting, I suppose. Okay, so I am starting a book club and we're going to start reading today. This is the book. I learned a lot of things that is breaking, I've learned a lot of things that is breaking me out of the matrix by reading, okay? So I want to, and if everybody's like chatting, I'm not gonna be able to chat while I read. So if you have this book, you can read along, meet your straw man and whatever you want to know. I don't know who wrote this. You can get these off of Amazon. There's 3 of them. We're going to be doing 3 of them to start. The UCC Connection, Common Law Handbook, and then Meet Your Straw Man. These are simple, easy reads. I just know that several years ago, I started out reading books that I didn't normally read and listening to people read books that I didn't normally read. And fast forward, it's changed my life a little bit. So I was trying to think, how could I help with the information that I have and guide people down the path that maybe they want to go on? And reading for me was one of the biggest things. So we're going to start today. Meet Your Strawman. Page 1. Some of these books, the words don't, I've noticed, they don't necessarily like mesh well together. So I'm really sorry if it gets confusing. I'm not going to put in too much commentary here, but it's important to read the words as they are. And then I have an email list for this book club, jilllandrie.com. You can go there and plug in your email. All I'm going to do is I will email you like the next books so that you're ready, so you have them. And then at some point, which I'm not ready to do right now, we'll have a private group to discuss the things that don't belong in the public, right? But for right now, I'm just going to freaking read. Let's have a little quiz. Okay, so there's a picture right here. Let's have a little quiz. Who meets there? What do they do there? Do they help you in any way? If your answers were number 1, who meets there? Members of the government. Number 2, what do they do there? They represent all the people living in the country. Number 3, do they help you in any way? Yes, they create laws to protect me and my family. Then let me congratulate you on getting every one of your answers wrong. Didn't do too well in the quiz? Okay, let's have another one. When was slavery abolished? Number 4. Number 5, was slavery legal? Number 6, are you in debt to a financial institution? Here are the answers. Again, I'm not paying attention to chat, so I apologize ahead of the game. I'm just reading. Here are the answers. Okay, so the first one was, number 4 was, when was slavery abolished? The survey, okay, so here, good morning. Sometimes the books are a little confusing. So here are the correct answers. The first question was, who meets there? The serving officers of a commercial corporation. Because if you look up the definition of the United States, it's a corporation. America is the country. So this was one of the biggest things that I had to really wrap around my head. Good morning. I hope everybody's having a good day. Number 2, what do they do there? They think up ways to take money and goods from you. It feels like that's what they do there, right? Oh, geez, I'm gonna get a bunch of bots. That's okay. Number 3, do they help you in any way? No, absolutely not. They help themselves and not you. Number 4, when was slavery abolished? Slavery has never been abolished and you yourself are considered to be a slave right now. Number 5, was slavery legal? Yes, slavery is legal, although it is not lawful. You need to discover the difference. Legal and lawful are 2 totally different things. How do I block people? No, I gotta block people. Give me just a minute, guys. Let's report you. Okay, So, number 6, are you in debt to a financial institution? No, you are not in debt to any financial institution. Does this seem a little strange to you? If it does, then read on. Those in power have a big secret. Paying taxes, optional. Registering a vehicle is optional. Paying a fine is optional. Attending a court is optional. So what I am going to tell you is this is all for education purposes. I'm reading a book. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just giving you some information out of this book. So you can if you want to, but you don't have to. Surprised? We'll try this one on for size. Every mortgage and loan is fully prepaid from day one. You can pay it again if you want to, but you don't have to. If nobody has told you that you have a straw man, which after several years of learning, I don't necessarily, I've seen it called that a couple times in some of the court cases, but you can call it whatever you want. I explain this as you are two different people, kind of. So you're the living person that was created in God's image, and you have what's called a strawman, or your all caps name that was set up for you by the government when you were born. Now there's a lot of like deep stuff to that. The biggest thing you need to think about is your all caps name is connected to a number. And this is in America. I don't know for sure other countries. I've talked to some people and it's very similar, but I know this is in America. So just real quick side note. What kind of got me thinking was when I looked at my social security card and someone said, put a magnifying glass where you're supposed to sign your name, right? So I did, and it says authorized representative. And I was like, huh? And then on the back, it says give back, right? Give back to the Social Security Administration. It's not yours. And I was like, wait, what? That's kind of weird, right? So that led me to do some digging. Long story short, your all caps name is connected to an account number. Your living person cannot be connected to an account number because you're a living soul, right? So that's what they consider strawman in this book. Your strawman was created when you were very young, far too young to know anything about it. But then it was meant to, as its purpose is to swindle you, and it has been used very effectively to do just that ever since it was created. I'm gonna pause and see if I can. It's really sad that we can't share our feelings in social media, but some kind of sick fucks can get on here and like be disgusting. Like it just blows my mind. Anyways, okay. So we're on page 3. Perhaps it is about time that you learned about your strawman and how you can stop it being used against you. Knowing about it is the most important first step. You need to go on a journey of discovery, and I'm afraid that what you are about to discover. Thank you, Gary. So did I. Thanks. This is like my first time live on YouTube. So once I figure out how to block people, I'll get it done. But right now I have limited time to read, and I was going to do this yesterday and I didn't. So ADHD. So I'm just going to keep reading. Thank you. Knowing about it is the most important first step. You need to go on a journey of discovery, and I'm afraid that what you are about to discover is not very pleasant. However, if you decide to act on what you learn, it could change your life for the better. If you think that you are in debt, then you can get out of it if you are willing to stand up for your rights and refuse to be swindled any longer. Interested? If so, then let's start at the beginning and find out where your strawman came from and why you should care about it. It all started when your parents had a happy event and you entered the world. You don't know exactly when that was because you were not aware of the days of the week, the months of the year, or even what year it was. Even after some months had gone by, you still were not aware of these things. But by that time, your strawman had already been created, and it was being used to make some very unscrupulous people rich. So just a little side note, what you need to break down is you'll need to understand, just to get deeper into this, you'll need to understand a little bit about trusts, which is not anything that common, and I say common, I don't want to say normal, I say common. I feel like I'm a common person. Never taught about a trust, never taught about an estate, never taught about any of those things. things. So this is really important to understand because your estate was put into a trust, right? This is something that was formed through the government, so it's not necessarily yours, it's not necessarily any of this, but when you start going down this path, these are some things that you're going to need to understand, comprehend. Words are important. Understand, stand under. I'm working on putting together some free ebooks and some paid ebooks. Hi, good morning. I'm from America. So none of this was your fault. It happened because your parents were fooled into thinking that they needed to register your birth and get a birth certificate for you. So they applied for a birth certificate, not understanding what would happen when they did. Side note, read everything that you sign, everything, and understand it because it's all there. A lot of this is given away through power of attorney inside a lot of these contracts that we sign. Well, then what did happen? According to the local authority, and we're going to get kind of deep here with maritime law, admiralty, like this is really deep. So I'm trying to stay very surface level and very general here in the beginning, okay? Number one, they lost ownership of their baby, you, because they registered it to somebody, right? And thank you to everyone on here that reported like the not nice people and is listening and or sharing, like, thank you. Number two, they allowed a straw man to be created. So they allowed something to be created, and it's really like a registered business is what it is. That's why it has a number. So this is not something which they can be blamed for. Your parents, they didn't know, as nobody told them it would or even could happen. So on the birth certificate, there's the certificate of live birth, okay? And your mom or whomever signed for you, it says right there as an informant, okay? So they are informing, and the signature on this certificate of live birth. Now, if you get a birth certificate, those are two different things. The birth certificate versus the certificate of live birth, two different things. Nor did anybody tell your parents what a straw man is or how it can be used against their baby. In actual fact, the registration is a contract, which is in reality null and void because there was no full disclosure by the local authority, nor was there intent to contract on the part of your parents. The registering of a baby's birth passes ownership of the baby to the local authority, and that alone allows the local authority to take the child away from the parents if they ever want to do that. This applies until the child reaches the age of maturity set by the current legal statutes. Doing that is not lawful, but after the birth has been registered, it is legal, and there is a world of difference between these two terms, a difference which it is very important that you come to clearly understand. So what is a straw man? A straw man is a fictitious legal entity created with the hope that as the child grows up, he will be fooled into believing that he is actually the straw man, which he most definitely is not, and pay all sorts of imaginary costs and liabilities which gets attached to the straw man by con artists. So after several years of learning, I had to start looking at this a little bit different, because while I agree with what's in this book, if you're going to move through this after you move through the stages of like grief and all the stuff that you figure out, you have to start looking at this practically. And the practicality of it is your social security number is connected to a public trust that is supposed to take care of all your liabilities, not you. You're a living person that is not supposed to be handling those things, but you were not told that. And I don't necessarily know that it's kept a lie. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but the truth of the matter is it's there. So how is a straw man created? Well, the mechanism involves that unnecessary birth certificate, which the parents imagine is about and belongs to their baby, neither of which is actually true. So some of the things that kind of raised red flags for me was I started reading things that said the birth certificate couldn't be used as identification. And I was like, I thought I had to have that to identify myself, right? You don't. You don't. That's not what it's used for. It's not used for identification. Actually, your certificate of live birth is the proof, and then your birth certificate is your certificate in the stock. Okay, so like years ago, they used to issue stock certificates, and you would get the actual paper certificate. That's what your birth certificate is. If the baby has been named James and the family name is Martin, then you would expect the birth certificate to have the name James Martin printed on it. Excuse me. If that is what is printed on it, then all is well and it is a genuine birth certificate and nothing more. However, if any other name is there, then the document is not a birth certificate, but instead is the creation of the strawman masquerading as James Martin. The alternative entries might be any of the following examples: James Martin, Mr. James Martin, Martin, Mr. James, or anything else, which is not exactly James Martin and nothing else. So there's some issues. There's some issues with public school in America. They teach you to write your first, middle, last name, and they teach you to capitalize. Once you start kind of going down the path and you learn that capitalization means a business, like there's different things that mean things that you don't know. So like when I sign for stuff, my last name comes first. My last name was here before me, and then my God-given name, right? The name my parents gave me. I make sure that when I'm submitting court documents, any type of document or contract, when I sign, they know my capacity that I'm signing in. No longer do I identify as the all caps name, because I understand what is happening. I know that it's a business. I get what they've done. You're never going to get, I've found a few court cases, right? I found a few court cases, but you're never going to get a letter from the entities that say, oh, you've got it figured out or anything like that. This is just something that you have to practice. So why create a straw man? What time is it? It's 10:30. I have an appointment. All right, I'm going to go, let's see, 3, 5, 6. Jeez, if I just quit talking, right? Why create a straw man? The answer is, in order to charge the straw man imaginary costs and penalties and fool the human James Martin into paying those amounts, these imaginary charges include income tax, council tax, inheritance tax, capital gains tax, road tax, import tax, value-added tax, fuel levy, loan interest, bank charges, and anything else that full-time professionals can think up and are confident that you will not notice, that you never agreed to pay and you don't need to pay. Legalese is a secret language invited to trick you. His name is Bruce Elliott. I actually came across him on Facebook, Gary, in 2020, and he was saying things that piqued my interest, and I was like, what? I've always been a little like, have kind of an issue, I don't know, I don't want to say an issue with authority, but I just always kind of sort of question things. And then when I started listening to him on Facebook, because he started reading, this is what he did on Facebook, is he started reading, and I would catch the lives and I would listen to him while I was doing other stuff. Oh yeah, no, there's a whole nother world, and I learn from everybody. I have been lucky enough, now I'm at the point 5 years in that, and I'm not super religious, but I'm very spiritual. I pray a lot over clarity. Like, let me see what I'm supposed to see, because there was a lot in those years that I seen that didn't make sense and didn't work out. And I'm not the person that filed a bunch of paperwork. I didn't do any of that stuff, thank God. But now I'm at the point where I am in equity. I'm practicing equity. I understand the legal side. I want to be in equity. I want to be fair. I want to be just. I want to be all those things. So you can totally connect with me. I'm going to be sharing, I said early in the beginning, JillLandrie.com, or you can put your email address here, but there's a lot of weirdos in here, so I don't know if I'd do that. But you can go to my website. It's just starting to get up. I'm not super organized, but I want to share this information. It doesn't cost to be on here. I'm going to do this for free. There will be some things like I'm going to make some ebooks and stuff. Oh yeah, they're very applicable in day-to-day life. Yep. Yeah, there's lots of things that I've done to change my life. So, okay. Legalese is a secret language invented to trick you. It uses English words but attaches secret meanings to those words with the sole intention of stopping you from believing that what they are saying to you has nothing to do with the normal meaning in the English language. Their purpose is to cheat you and rob you. I don't know how I feel about that, because when I went in and I read the Trading with the Enemy Act, I started to realize that maybe they weren't purposely trying to swindle. I feel like now, and I'm using I statements because I want to make sure that anybody else that feels different, feel however the hell you want to feel, I feel now, after the several years of learning all this stuff, that the intention wasn't necessarily to do that right away. I believe the intention might have been malicious, because you have to read the Trading with the Enemy Act, and then you need to go in and understand what happened with the United States banking system and all of that. I think that it's gotten so big, the beast has gotten so big, that there's really no stopping it unless you do it individually. So that's the way that I feel about it. I am forgiving now after I've moved through the anger and the grief. So for example, they will ask to you, do you understand? I just said this. In English, that means, do you comprehend what I'm saying to you? And the automatic response would be yes, meaning I do comprehend what you are saying to me. But these sneaky underhand people have changed the meaning in legalese to mean, do you stand under me? Meaning, do you grant me authority over you so that you have to obey whatever I tell you to do? What makes it even worse is the fact that they will never tell you that they have switched from English to legalese, and if that is not dishonest, underhand, and unscrupulous, then I don't know what is. If you answer the question believing that English is being spoken, then they pretend that you are contracting with them to become subordinate to them. Whether or not that is actually true is debatable, because that is effectively a verbal contract between you and them, and for any contract to be valid, there has to be full and open disclosure of all the terms of the contract, and then unreserved acceptance by both parties. And in these cases, that has most definitely not occurred. Oh my gosh, you're so right, Gary. Okay, so I have a driver's license. I use my license. I have, like, there's certain like I had to step back. There's certain battles I'm not willing. Like, we're not going there. I'm not getting pulled over on the side of the road and arguing and going to jail for not like, I know the truth. I know that you don't have to have these things, but there are certain battles that I am not willing to deal with. So my driver's license, I absolutely signed in a different term, like in a different capacity. Like, there's certain things that I'm doing that feel good to me. These are the things that that's why it's like your journey. Stop watching the people on YouTube, find one or two people to learn from, and then go to the books. Go to the books, find the books. That's where it's at, because people can say things all day long and share stuff on YouTube until it actually comes to applicable things in your life. Yeah. So what is the point of all this? Well, this maneuver is intended to trick you into agreeing to represent your straw man. Why? Now that's a good question. But to answer it takes a bit of explaining, and you need to understand the overall situation. All humans, I don't even like that word. All humans are born equal with complete freedom of choice and action. If you live in the same place as a lot of other people, then there are a few restrictions which have grown up by common consent over time. These restrictions are for your protection and the protection of the other people living near you. These restrictions are called the law, or more accurately, common law. And they are few in number and very easy to understand. They are: you must not injure or kill anyone, you must not steal or damage things owned by somebody else, and you must be honest in your dealings and not swindle anyone. These restrictions have resulted from hundreds of years of disputes which have been dealt with through using common sense and the opinions of ordinary people. They are only limitations on you, and if you don't want to abide by them, then you need to go to some isolated place and stay away from other people. Many people think that there are hundreds of other laws which they have to keep, and new ones every other day, something like 300 and some a year. I was reading that. Those other things are called statutes, okay? And keeping them is optional for you, the human, but they are not optional for your fictitious straw man. And that is why the people who benefit from those things want to persuade you to represent your straw man, and so become subject to all of their invented restrictions and charges. If you knew that they were optional, would you agree to, 1, give most of your earnings away in taxes and similar charges? Number 2, pay to own a vehicle. Number 3, pay to own a television set. Number 4, pay to drive on roads which were built with your money. Number 5, be forced to join the armed services if you are told to. Number 6, send an army which is supposed to represent you into another country to murder innocent people there. Were you ever told that these things are optional? If you agree to represent your straw man, then these things become binding on you. These are some of the statutes which politicians keep inventing in order to make you poor, make them and their friends rich, and keep you in a position where you have to do Oops, I pulled in stuff. Sorry, y'all. Have to do everything they say, no matter how much that harms you and does away with your natural freedom and rights. But, says somebody, we elect a government to represent us, and so we have to do what they say. After all, they have our best interest at heart, don't they? I don't vote anymore. Voting is for U.S. citizens. I'm not a U.S. citizen. Well, that is a nice thought, but is it actually true? No, it isn't. You think that you elect politicians to represent you in your government, but that is not what you actually do. That is part of the very carefully fostered illusion intended to keep you in your place and giving most of your earnings away, typically 80% of all you earn. I don't know if it's 80, but it's a lot by the time you pay all the damn taxes, right? Part of the secret is that what is supposed to be your government is actually a privately owned for-profit company, and all that you do when voting is to help choose the serving officers inside that company. It will never make the slightest difference to what happens in the future, as the company policy and actions are controlled by the owners of the company, and they are not influenced in any way whatsoever by what you want. Think this is far-fetched? Then check it out via Dun & Bradstreet or any of the other place which records the setting up and performance of the 160 million commercial companies worldwide. When you do that, you will discover, for example, that the United States is a commercial for-profit company. Well, break it down, Gary. What's the United States? The United States is a corporation. It's not a country. Are you the citizen of a corporation? If you are, then you are subject to, okay? If you are a citizen of, let's say, the United States is a corporation. Legally, go look up the word United States. It's a corporation like it has its own DUNS number. It's a corporation. So if you are a citizen of that corporation, go look at the definition of citizen. You, in fact, are subject to, and look up those words, their statutes and codes. I am not a U.S. citizen, which I have rebutted multiple times because throughout my life, I agreed to it because I thought I was a U.S. citizen. I didn't know any better. Now I am not a U.S. citizen. I am a non-statutory, non-commercial, private citizen, okay? It's not that I'm not honorable and I don't think things don't apply to me, because they do. The difference is I know where my authority comes from, and I have to decide what sandbox I'm going to play on. Who do you rebut that to? Every time, anytime you do anything. So for example, the first place I did it was to get my passport. I didn't have a passport. I was leaving the country a couple years ago. I don't know what you mean by everyone. Everyone you come in contact with, sort of. So you don't want to be a paper terrorist either, Alicia. So I did my passport, and again, it's a government document. You got to choose your battles. When you start going down this path, you're going to find people, like Gary said, that are like all in, and this is what you do. You literally have to do this journey on your own and figure out what it is for you. I got a passport. I'm leaving the country. When I filled out my passport, I made sure that I didn't mark U.S. citizen. I'm not a U.S. citizen. So I'm rebutting the presumption immediately that I have already filled out. Like, I'm 42 years old, and there's so much stuff that I filled out in my lifetime that I marked U.S. citizen, right? Because I didn't know any better. Now, not anymore. So my first step was using my passport. I used the copper moonshine method. I sent in my certificate of life birth, and I signed as the authorized representative of the strawman, because that's who I am. So that was the first place. Got my U.S. passport just fine. There's some extra stars on it. I don't know if that means anything. I've been in and out of the country multiple times. No problems, no issues. I've used my passport instead of my driver's license when I got pulled over. Normally, I follow most of the laws, because why not? They're just here to, most of them are just here to make sure everything kind of stays in order. Some are stupid. But for the most part, I got pulled over. I was like 2 days over registration. I was speeding. Like I was not paying attention. Gave my passport instead of my driver's license. Came back. Have a nice day, Mrs. Landrie. I don't know. Did it work? I don't know. These are things you need to apply in your life. The IRS, not a U.S. citizen, man. Your shit don't apply to me. Anything you fill out, I'm not a U.S. citizen. Now, there have been some times when, like, if I'm going in and doing court documents or something, right? And they're asking, you know, the only option is you have to be a US citizen. I might mark that, but I'm putting at the bottom, all rights reserved. I had to mark this. They want to know where your residence is. I domicile, no residence for me, so I'll mark out residence. You can mark things off on contracts, initial, and keep going. So when you say everyone, just start. Silence is acquiescence. If you've marked U.S. citizen your whole life, just start marking no. No, I don't participate. Only U.S. citizens are allowed to vote. I don't vote in the corporate voting situation. The United States is a corporation. I do not participate. I don't need to elect somebody to tell me what to do. Right? It's about governing yourself and having the ability to do what's right. Like, literally, that's it. And if you want to get really super spiritual, first part of the Bible, you can read the multiple scriptures that tell you who you are, right? That's one of the biggest things. Who are you? Okay. So I'm going to keep reading because I want to get through, and I got to go. I'm probably going to be late because that's just how I roll, but I'm going to keep reading. I will come back to the comments and see if I can reply to things later. I'll get better at this, I promise. So, okay, the United States Corporation is a private company. The non-federal Federal Reserve Bank is a private company set up in the year 1913, as is every court and every police force, and even Congress is a company and not a person. 1871, I believe Congress walked out and never came back. That's when they set up the board of directors. We haven't had Congress in a very long time. Just in case you're not aware of it, the purpose of any commercial for-profit company or corporation is to make money for its owners and shareholders if there are any. The people who you think of as the government don't do anything that earns money. They instead take money from you, and their main job is to make sure that you don't realize that they are in the same position as IBM, which takes away millions of your money every year. So why all the pretense of there being a genuine government which you elect and who serves you? They don't want you to understand that you are just running a company which produces nothing of any worth, something like a betting shop where almost every customer loses money, and wake up to the fact that unlike what you've been told all your life, this is all optional and you don't need to play their rip-off game any longer unless you want to. Now, real quick, if you play in their sandbox, you need to understand their rules. If you're going to play their game, you need to understand what their rules are. We haven't been told the rules. I'm realizing there's a lot of statutes and codes, and I really don't want to play in their sandbox. So I'm moving to the other side and doing private equity as much as I can, but you still need to be able to step back into the public and handle your business there. So it's like a game. It's literally like a game. You have a pawn. Your strawman is the pawn. The government gave it to you. The biggest thing with me is I want to surrender that pawn, and I want my own, because you can give back to Caesar what is Caesar's and give back to God what is God's. Stand in your own authority, create your own stuff. What does that mean? That means you need a trust. Okay? They have a trust for you, which you're operating out of, and we are not doing it correctly, by the way, but we'll figure that out later. You need a trust. So just so you know. They want you to be so burdened down with paying them money and working so hard and so long that you don't have the time, money, or energy to stop and think about what is happening to you and your family. Exactly. They're desperate to stop you from just walking away from their scam so that they make every effort to connect you with the fiction, which is your strawman, because fictitious entities like commercial companies can't have any dealing with a real man or a real woman. They can only deal with another fiction like your strawman, and it is essential that they fool you into believing that you have to act on behalf of your strawman, which you don't. So this is so true. Corporations cannot talk to living. They can't. That's why you have a corporation. They're talking to your all caps name. That's the only way that they can. It's the only way it works. And if you don't believe me, go look on your Social Security card with a magnifying glass. Look up authorized representative. Call the Social Security office. What do you mean by authorized representative? What is this account connected to? Start asking questions. They have a number of well-proven methods of distracting you and keeping you from finding out. They want you to see a great deal of entertainment. Hollywood. Back in the Roman days, circus and bread or something. I remember something like that. Anyways, also, they are very careful that most entertainment reinforces their make-believe world and makes it appear to be the real world where everyone is under the government, Police officers uphold the law. Taxes are essential in order to keep things going, and things which are said to be bad for you are taxed heavily, not to make money, but supposedly to encourage you to avoid these things. You will notice that they keep saying that their invented statutes are the law, which they most certainly are not. But if they say it often enough, people start believing it and never think to question what they say. All right, so let's backtrack and let me be very careful with how I say this. But in 2020, there was a situation that went on where everybody had to cover their face, okay? We were told it was the law. I don't believe that. That wasn't enacted. So I went and spoke to my sheriff, which I understand, comprehend, whatever the hell you want to say. The sheriff is the law of the land. He actually has more power than the governor. The sheriff is the law of the land. When you start comprehending how everything's set up, so mandate is not a law. You are correct. I went and spoke with my sheriff. We had a discussion. He's like, no, this isn't law. He's like, these are things, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what are you going to do to me when I try to walk into a grocery store? Because I am not complying because I do not have to. And ultimately what he told me is don't cause a ruckus. Don't cause a scene where it becomes something. If you can pop in and pop out, if you can do, I got it, right? There was a mutual understanding. So I got it. So that's just something to think about. Like, what actually is law, right? So they also have another very effective technique, and that is fear. Oh my gosh, I've ran into this so many times with talking to people about the IRS, the fear. And literally several years it's taken me for my fear kind of to disappear, but I also used to do a bunch of other stuff with taxes before I found out all of this. So like my fear around it, the more I learn and educate myself, I feel better. But fear, they want you to be afraid. Afraid of imaginary terrorists, afraid of disasters, afraid of new diseases. And some of these things are in fact true, but catch the news, like you get it. Afraid of the economy doing badly and inflation rising. If you doubt this, then take a look at the news and count the number of positive, uplifting news items and the number of negative or depressing news items. It doesn't take much in the way of research to see the very heavy negative bias in the news. The reason behind this is to make you feel that you need a government and an army to protect you from those supposed dangers. It is easy to keep the news items based that way because all of the major news agencies and media outlets in the world are owned by only 5 or 6 privately owned commercial companies. So to supposedly connect you to the strawman, which they created for you when your birth was registered, they use the legalese technique of conning you with the name of the strawman. If you are ill-advised enough to go to a court, which is a corporate place of business, as the accused, you will be asked to confirm your name, quoting the full name shown on your birth certificate, which is the legal personality. Titles such as Mr., Dr., Rev, Gov, Sec, or Secretary, or whatever are not asked for as they are not required. The accused is actually the legal personality, which is the name on the birth certificate. So when they ask for the person's name, they're talking to the legal personality and not to the human. This is because a human cannot exist in the legal world. Only pieces of paper can, and that is something which they are very careful not to tell you. This is really a key issue. Natural law and common law are the only laws which apply to humans, and they deal only with harming other people or causing them loss. And outside of those restrictions, a human has free and unlimited entitlement to do anything he chooses, which complies with these principles. As opposed to this, acts of Congress, statutes and statutory instruments, contracts, do not apply to the human, but only to the piece of paper, which is the legal personality, which has no reality. As the legal fiction, the legal personality was created by the company called the United States Corporation. That company gets to say what the rights and duties for that piece of paper are. When a person is born in America, the mother and father submit a birth certificate registration form, which is a piece of paper. There's no requirement under common law to do this. When any limited company or corporation is set up, there is always a certificate of registration in order to create its legal personality, and that is a piece of paper. Please note that an American birth certificate states quite clearly that it is not evidence of identity, meaning that it has nothing to do with the human. Marked on it is U.S. copyright, showing clearly that it does not belong to an individual and was created by the state. This act of registering a child makes that child a ward of the court, and the child can be taken away from the parents at any time. This is true. The child needs to be inside of a trust with its own jurisdiction. The legalese definitions of words which sound commonplace can be found in Black's Law Dictionary, and the current edition is the 8th. Interestingly, in legalese, you, the human, are defined as a monster, which shows exactly what the people use as legalese think of you. Charming people, aren't they? I actually found in law, in their legal statutes, that we are incompetent minors. That's what you are until you rightfully take your place. Another trick that they try to play on you is to imply that a summons is something which you must obey, while in fact it is only an invitation to attend their place of business. They are not inviting you, the man or woman, but instead they're inviting the legal personality to their place of business, and please note that there is a choice, as it's only an invitation. The legal personality is just a piece of paper, a birth certificate, created by the commercial company called the United States Corporation, and it is not the human. You can't be forced into a contract, so they have to deceive you into entering into one without understanding what you're doing. They are using deception, as every judge's court is a trading name of the commercial company called the Department of Justice, which does not have a parent company listed, meaning that it is a parent company itself. Legal people, on being shown this company registration, respond by realizing that if this information is genuine, then the U.S. has been lawless for more than 100 years, because the whole justice system is being dealt with by a commercial company. Going to court in connection with any civil action is a very bad idea, as the only function of a court is to judge between two parties who disagree and then penalize the loser. The court doesn't care who wins or loses, and the objective of the court is to make a profit for its owners, as it is a commercial enterprise, and its purpose is to acquire money from anybody who is foolish enough to attend. If you look at the summons, which is really an invitation to go to court, you will see that it is not in your name, but the name of the strawman, which they are hoping to fool you into representing. Okay, I'm done reading for today, but I really quickly just want to say, because of course, I have an appointment in like 8 minutes and it's 15 minutes away, because that's how I roll. If you get summons to court, they summons the dead. This is all true. Do not ignore it. I don't know if you took that from here. Don't ignore it. Okay, you need to reply quickly, because silence is acquiescence. So if they sent you something there, even if it's for your strawman, they'll be like, you agreed. There are ways to go to court. I personally have been to court 3 times, all over third-party debt collector stuff. I lost the first 2 times. Lessons. I didn't lose. I learned some very good lessons. 3rd time I won. One meaning multiple different things, right? I didn't have to pay, is my idea of winning right now. So I just wanted to share that with you. I'll be back to look through the comments, and we will, this took a little while because I'm just getting used to this. I will be back probably tomorrow, and we're going to go dealing with debt is the next, page 11. So yeah, if you don't have the book, get it. Thank you everybody that reported. Stupid people, I appreciate you. I'm glad you're here. I hope that this helps, and yeah, have a good day.